here today. I do appreciate it. My name is Michelle, and I work for the Registry of Motor Vehicles. Thank you to Phil at NORCAM for recording this program today, and that allows a lot of people who are not able to come out today to also learn about the Real ID. So as I was talking to you before we started, we're talking about the Real ID, and what is the Real ID? It is a federally compliant credential. It was created because of 9/11. As a result of 9/11, the Department of Homeland Security was created, and then the Real ID Act was actually established, and it became a federal mandate in 2005. So the Real ID Act was created by Congress of 2005 as a result of 9/11. So there have been a few extensions. Maybe you've been hearing about the Real ID for some time now, and that is true. And it is because when COVID hit, the federal government knew that people were not able, or we were not encouraging people to come in person during COVID, during the pandemic, and neither was any other state in the United States. And the only way you can get the Real ID initially is by visiting in person. It's not something that you could just do online initially. Now, once you have a Real ID, and how do you tell if you have a Real ID or a standard ID or driver's license? If you look at your license or ID card, you'll see a star in the top right-hand corner. That's the indicator that it means that that credential, whether it's a license or an ID card, is a federally compliant credential. And what does that mean? Well, what that means is that starting on May 7th of the year 2025, TSA at the airport will be requiring that passengers show either a valid passport or a Real ID. So that's why someone would need to have a star on their driver's license or ID card if they plan to fly domestically. So if you plan to fly within the United States anytime on or beyond May 7th of the year 2025, security will not let you board that airplane unless you have either a valid passport or a Real ID, so your driver's license or ID card with a star, top right-hand corner. So the other scenario where you will need to have either a valid passport or a Real ID to enter is at Social Security office buildings, as well as federal courthouses. So, and military bases. So there are actually four different scenarios where starting on May 7th, 2025, a person will be required to show either a valid passport or a Real ID or a Department of Defense military ID to get into Social Security office buildings, federal courthouses, military bases, and to fly within the U.S. So that's what the Real ID is all about. And you have two little pamphlets. One is this little poster, and that tells you exactly what I just said. That in order to get a Real ID, it does require that you go in person. And the only way you can go in person to either the Registry of Motor Vehicles or to AAA, because we have great partners at AAA, and they're serving as mini registries. So if you're a AAA member, you could get your Real ID at AAA when you come in to renew your driver's license. So that's important to know too. But it's all by reservation only. So you need to make a reservation in advance in order to get into the Registry of Motor Vehicles. There are two ways to make a reservation. One is you can go to our website, which is mass.gov/RMV, and that website is listed right across the bottom of your poster in big blue letters, and it is mass.gov/RMV. Make sure that you are on this website, please. That is the official Registry of Motor Vehicles. So again, it is at the bottom of the poster. and it is in blue print, and it is mass.gov/RMV. That is the registry's website, and right from that website, you can make a reservation right there. You can cancel a reservation right there. If you don't feel like making it online, that's okay. You can call us. We have a dedicated telephone number that customers can call. And if you'd like to jot this telephone number down, I would recommend it. If you need a pen, let me know. I've got some extra pens. Okay, sure. So, and I'm sorry the telephone number is not listed on this, but I do have pens, as I said. Okay, so the telephone number, there you go. You're very welcome. There you go. You're welcome. And here you go. It might take a moment to start the pen. I'll get you a pen.
Is this the registry in Wilmington?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, any registry, the telephone number that I am going to give you will allow you to make a reservation over the phone at any registry of motor vehicle in Massachusetts. All right. So the telephone number is area code 857-368-8005. Again, area code 857-368-8005. And that phone number is open. We have staff able to answer your call Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. And I'll repeat it again, 857-368-8005. Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. Because the only way you can renew a driver's license or an ID card, thank you so much, is by making a reservation in advance. You're no longer able to walk in and be served, except for one group of transactions, and that is for any registration, license plate transaction. So if you bought a car and you need to register a new vehicle, well, you can walk in. You don't need to make a reservation. But just for motor vehicle registration transactions, you don't need a reservation. But any other transaction at the registry, including renewing your driver's license, getting the real ID, you must have a reservation in advance. The other thing that we have, in addition to that telephone number, and let me tell you, that telephone number that I just gave you is only for customers age 65 and older. Okay, or for any customer who has a disability. So that telephone number is open only to age 65 and older, or anyone who has a disability. So the wait time is much quicker than if you were to call our main number, which is 857-368-8000. That's the main number. So anyway, the other thing that we have a senior hour at the Registry of Motor Vehicles. So on Wednesday morning at all of our registry locations from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. by reservation only. We dedicate that 1 hour to our customers age 65 and older. So that's our senior hour every Wednesday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's 50% fewer customers, so it's 50% of the normal capacity during that time. It is by reservation only, and it's only at the Registry of Motor Vehicles. AAA does not have a senior hour, I know that for sure. If you're interested in making a reservation to visit AAA, you would have to go to AAA's website, which is AAA.com, or you could probably call, I believe there's a telephone number on your AAA card, you could call that phone number and make a reservation to visit AAA. So those are the housekeeping issues, that a real ID is a star in the top right-hand corner of your driver's license or ID card. It will be required starting in the year 2025 on May 7th to fly domestically. to enter Social Security offices, federal courthouses, and military bases. The only way to get the real ID initially is by visiting in person, and you have to have a reservation in advance to visit at any hour that we are open, which is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. So how does one get a real ID? Well, you have completed the first step, because the first step to getting a real ID is getting your hands on this checklist. Now, this checklist will be mailed to you when your license is up for renewal. The Registry of Motor Vehicles does send a reminder notice in the mail, and we'll include this checklist. But it's so nice, and a big thank you to the North Reading COA for allowing me to be here, because I can give you this checklist ahead of time. And this will help you prepare for your visit. So you will be well prepared, and once you make that reservation and go into the registry or AAA, you will have great success, because you'll know exactly what is needed, okay? So this checklist, please disregard the date across the top, because the date just changed. So there's an orange banner right across the top. Just disregard that date. That was the date as of last week. Now, as I told you, the new date is May 7th, 2025. So, but what I do want you to do is, if you could turn to page 1, which is actually the page that has the title right underneath the orange banner. So page 1 looks like this. It has the title right across the top, and it says Identification Documents Checklist. And I have an extra one. I'll give this one to you, and I'll go grab another one. And if anybody else needs a checklist, let me know. But anyway, so this is your checklist. Bring this with you to the registry or AAA, along with your required documents. So what documents are requested? Are required, not requested, required. And again, this is a federal mandate, so every state within the United States must comply with this, all of these requirements. So there are a couple bullets at the top of the form that are really important. And one bullet is, we are not allowed to accept photocopied documents. Okay, so we are not allowed to accept any photocopies. Originals only is what is required. You must have an original document. No photocopies can be accepted. We cannot accept a laminated Social Security card as well, so keep that in mind. And that is because the Real ID Act of 2005 requires the licensing agency
They have a license, they need
to
to.
scan everything into our system. So obviously, photocopied documents do not scan well. Laminated documents don't scan at all. So that is one of the requirements of this Real ID Act, is that the licensing agency must not only review manually all of the documents that you give to us, but then we take them and we will put them into our scanner, and then we will hand them back to you. Okay, so that's a big piece of this. So we capture every detail of every document that you give to us, and that is what is required by federal law. So what is the first step? The first step is bringing one document that will prove lawful presence and date of birth. And what lawful presence means in this instance, that any one of these documents listed on page 1, above the dotted line, page 1 above the dotted line, any one of those 11 documents is a document that proves that a person is living in the United States legally, whether it's on a temporary basis or a permanent basis. If the person has one of these 11 documents listed on page 1, that proves that document, and as long as the document is valid and unexpired, that document will prove that they are legally living in the U.S., and it will prove their date of birth. So let me just give you a couple examples. So as we read along on this checklist, the box on page 1 is titled Proof of Lawful Presence / Proof of Date of Birth. All documents must be valid and unexpired. One document is required. So what could you use? The first document we list here is a U.S. passport, book, or card. So either one, whether you have a U.S. passport, book, or card, you would bring that with you. and we will use that to prove lawful presence. Make sure the passport has not expired, okay? But if it has expired, well, look, there are other documents you can choose from. The next document listed is an original or a certified version of your U.S. birth certificate. Now, pay real close attention. If you feel like you're going to use your birth certificate to prove lawful presence, that's great, but make sure that it complies with the following information. So you'll notice, underneath where it says original or certified version of birth certificate, that must meet the following requirements. It must be issued by the city, town, county, or state. So it has to be issued by a municipality. So please do not bring in a hospital birth record. We cannot accept that. Please do not bring in a baptismal certificate. We cannot accept that. It must be your birth certificate issued by a municipality. It must also list your full name, your date of birth, and your place of birth. The next bullet reads, it must list your parents' full names. It must have the signature of the city, county, or state registrar. So whichever registrar issued you that birth certificate to your family or to whomever it is, we have to see their signature. It also has to have a date that birth certificate was filed with the town or city or state, and the date has to be within 1 year of your date of birth. And last but not least, it has to have the seal of the issuing agency. So if your birth certificate does not have all 6 pieces of information required here, we cannot accept it, okay? So you would have to contact the city clerk, vital statistics, the town clerk in town, and ask them for a certified version of your birth certificate that includes all of these 6 bullets of information, okay? So then, well, if you don't have a birth certificate, maybe you were not born in the United States, and maybe you don't have a passport, well, look, there are other documents listed here. For instance, a consular report of birth abroad, issued by the Department of State. A permanent resident card, issued by the Department of Homeland Security. The second column reads, a temporary I-551 stamp in a foreign passport, or a foreign passport with a valid visa, or a certificate of citizenship, a certificate of naturalization, a re-entry permit, or a refugee travel document. Those are the only 11 documents that we can accept from a customer that will prove lawful presence. So that's step 1, bringing one of these documents listed. Now, I'd like to bring your attention to the dotted line on page 1, and the information right underneath that dotted line is very important for the people that want the real ID. And the information reads, your current name must match the name that appears on your lawful presence document when applying for the real ID. And if it does not, you must bring in one or more of the documents listed under the dotted line. So, for instance, if I bring in a birth certificate that maybe shows my maiden name, and I want to apply for the real ID, I will have to bring in my marriage license from the city or town where I applied to get married. Maybe I got married and I got divorced and I remarried and I changed my name both times, but I want the real ID, and I'm using a birth certificate that shows my maiden name. I would need to bring in all of the marriage licenses and all of the divorce decrees, because the registry has to see the progression of name change. That's only for the real ID. If you don't want the real ID, you do not have to bring in proof that you legally changed your name. But if you want the real ID, you've got to bring in proof of name change. So then, please flip your checklist over to the second page, because the next step is on the second page, the top section, and it is titled Proof of Social Security Number. Bring one. Bring one document from this section to prove your Social Security number. So it says for the real ID, license or ID card, one document below must be presented. For a standard license or ID card, your Social Security number must validate with Social Security Administration or provide a denial notice. So what that is saying is that if you want the real ID, bring one document from this section. So bring your Social Security card. Make sure it's not laminated, and make sure the name on the Social Security card is your current name. If it is not, you've got some alternate documents that you can choose from. A W-2 form that shows all 9 digits of your Social Security number. A 1099 tax form, so a 1099 from Social Security Administration, or a 1099 from another agency, maybe a bank or a financial institution, or maybe Fidelity or Charles Schwab, any sort of 1099 that you get, as long as it shows all 9 digits of your Social Security number, you can use that to prove your Social Security number. A pay stub showing all 9 digits of your social, or a Social Security number denial notice. So again, bring one document from this section to prove Social Security number. And then finally, the final section is this larger box on page 2 that is titled Proof of Massachusetts Residency. Please look to the right of that box. You'll see a smaller box inside the box. And that tells you how many documents from each section you need. So that smaller box says, for standard, check 1. For real ID, check 2. So that means you need to bring in 2 documents that prove Massachusetts residency. So what can you use? Well, any two of the documents listed in this section. Okay, one can be a registry item. So a registry document like your driver's license, your valid ID card, or a piece of mail sent to you by the registry dated within 60 days of your visit to the Registry of Motor Vehicles. So one can be a registry item. The items listed here, in order for us to accept them, they all must show your name and your residential address. We cannot accept a document that only shows a post office box number, all right? Nor can we accept a document that only is mailed to you in care of someone else, all right? So whatever document that you bring that is listed here has to show your name and your residential address. So let's get to the list. So again, I said you can use one registry item. So bring your driver's license, check that off on the checklist, and that's one. And then choose from any other section in this section, all right? So any other category, for instance, state, federal, city, town, county, agency issued documents, like a first-class piece of mail dated within 60 days of your visit, a first-class piece of government issued mail dated within 60 days, a professional license, a Medicaid statement dated within 60 days, a current firearms card, a jury duty summons or a court correspondence dated within 60 days, a property tax bill for the current year, an excise tax bill for the current year. And then there's a whole nother section, bills. We can accept a bill, a utility bill, a credit card bill, a medical or hospital statement, an insurance bill, or a cell phone bill. Again, the bills must be dated within 60 days of your visit to the registry. And usually people, they find there too in the first column, usually. But if not, look, there's a whole nother column here that lists leases, mortgages, or a rental contract, financial related documents such as a W-2 or a pay stub. But please keep in mind that if you're using your W-2 or pay stub to prove your Social Security number, you cannot use that same W-2 or pay stub to also prove mass residency, okay? So it's one document, cannot be used for multiple categories, so. But look, there are other documents here, like a financial documents, like a current pension statement if you have a 401k, a current retirement statement, a bank statement, or maybe a checking account or savings account, bring that as long as it's dated within 60 days. And then there are others. Just read this checklist carefully, check off which two you'll bring to prove mass residency, along with the other sections. You bring that all in with you, and you will get your real ID. Now, your license expires on your birthday for every 5 years. So a license is valid, just like an ID card, valid for 5 years, and it expires on your birthday. In Massachusetts, you do have the ability to renew your license 1 year prior to the expiration. So within a year of the expiration date is your renewal window. So a lot of people think, oh, I need to wait just till a month before it expires. No, you don't. No, don't procrastinate. In Massachusetts, you can renew your license within 1 year of that expiration date. You will not lose any time. You will add that. We will add that time into your new license. Okay, so keep that in mind too. We expect to be very, very busy we're very busy every day, but so don't put it off. If you're thinking about upgrading to the Real ID, do it sooner rather than later. And the other thing is, once you are issued a Real ID, meaning your license has the star in the top right-hand corner, or your ID card has the star in the top right-hand corner, based on your age, you might be able to renew that online in 5 years. So when it expires the next time, you might be able to renew it online based on your age. So in Massachusetts, the age cutoff for renewing your license online is 75 years old. So once a person turns 75, they can no longer renew their license online. It just means that every 5 years that person must make a reservation, come into the registry or AAA, pass an eye test, and then we'll issue a new license for another 5 years, okay? So if you look at your license and you see, well, my license does not expire in a year. It expires maybe in 2024, let's say, 2024. Well, technically right now you're not eligible to renew, but if you want to get the Real ID immediately, as soon as possible, you can do what's called a replacement. So if you're not eligible to renew at the current time, you can do something else, which is called replacing your license. Now, important to keep in mind that when you do a replacement, not a renewal, but a replacement, the registry and AAA cannot add any time to that license. You have to keep the same expiration date when you do a replacement. Unlike renewing, when you renew, we add 5 years to it. But when you can only replace, we don't add any time to that credential, okay? It costs, finally, let's see, it costs $50. I say finally because I'm getting to the end of the presentation. So a driver's license costs $50 to renew. An ID card costs $25 to renew. And what does it cost to replace a document? Well, it costs $25. It's a flat rate of $25, whether it's a license or an ID card. So if any of you have physically lost your license, maybe you lost your wallet, or God forbid somebody stole your wallet, and you need to replace your license or ID card, that costs $25 to do, okay? So that is all about the Real ID. Now you know what it is and why we're talking about it. You know, to get the star put on your credential, it does require you to visit in person, and you must have a reservation in advance. You know now how to make that reservation, either by calling us or by going online to our website. And the Real ID will allow you to board an airplane anytime starting May 7th, 2025. May 7th, 2025, or to get into Social Security or federal courthouses. So I thank you so much for listening to the presentation. I'll be happy to take questions if you have them. Yes?
When you get a replacement, do they take a new photo and give you a new license? A new photo?
Yeah, when you get the replacement and upgrade to the Real ID at the same time, Yes, the answer is yes. We will take a new photo of you when you apply for that
Okay.
real ID, even if it is a replacement.
Okay.
We will take your photo.
And all of the same documents are required for
Yes,
replacement?
correct. All of the same documents. Even though maybe you renewed a couple years ago and you brought in your birth certificate or your passport already, anyone who wants to upgrade from a standard to a real ID must repeat the process and bring in all the documents again.
If you already have an ID,
A real ID?
License.
Uh-huh.
why do you have to go through all the,
If you already have your real ID, you've got the star in the top right-hand corner, you don't have to bring in all these documents
Yeah.
again. Like I told you earlier, for you, you've got the real ID. So, yeah, so all you'll have to do is just take the eye test.
yeah,
Because we have all the documents. But for someone who does not have the star yet on their license, they have a standard, they would have to bring in all the
would
required
AAA have all the documents also?
Yes, AAA
They have
accesses the registry's
Yeah, okay.
database, so they will see all of the documents, yes. So we have everything captured in our system, and when you go to AAA uses the same system, okay? So they will see all the same documents. So bringing in these documents to get the real ID is a one-time requirement. Once you have the real ID, you might be eligible to renew it online the next time it expires, okay? Yes.
I will be exactly 75 at the next renewal.
Okay.
It's a 70, so will I have to go in person or will I get one
Well,
last
you
time to do it?
technically, because you want the real ID, the answer is yes. You will have to go in person, but if you did not want the real ID, you could renew it online if you are younger than 75 at the time of renewal.
At the time of renewal,
At the
so,
time of renewal.
okay, so it's, if I renew any time before my 75th birthday,
Yep.
I won't have to go in person.
No, and you won't get the real ID though, that's the
But
thing.
if I already have the real ID,
Correct.
then I,
That is correct. If you
that-
already have the real ID, you can renew in person. That is true.
I can
Yes.
renew not in
Oh,
person.
excuse me, I'm sorry. If you have the real ID and you're younger than age 75, you can renew online. Yes, correct. Yes.
Good to
I'm
know.
not,
That's
I'm
good to
just
know.
Okay.
I have a real ID.
Yes,
Do I need an appointment?
yes,
or-
you certainly
I
do. Yes,
okay.
this question is, I'm not younger than 75 and I have the real ID. It's a driver's license. Do I need to renew in person? The answer is yes, and you need to make a reservation in advance. So in Massachusetts, the only way you can renew a driver's license if you are age 75 or older is by making a reservation and going in person to AAA or to the registry, because you have to pass the eye test. Take and pass that eye test.
I did it back a number of years ago, so I'm okay, and I've got the star and all that
Yep.
jazz. Thank you for answering his question, because it answered, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I went to AAA and I was in and out. I
Good
made
for
a
you.
reservation, I think I was there 10 minutes.
Good for you. The majority of customers
easy.
absolutely have
Very
that
easy.
experience,
Yeah.
yes. If you're
Very easy.
doing what you're doing, you're paying
Yeah.
attention, you're being informed and educated, and now you know, okay, these are the
Yeah, good.
documents that I need. So you're right, the majority of customers at AAA and at the registry do have success, and it's not an issue at all. So again, thanks to, town, the COAs and the libraries and the community centers that allow the registry to, do these programs. And thank you, Phil and NORCAM, for recording, because that way everybody gets to understand what documents do I need now to bring in to get the real ID, or do I even need the real ID? And the answer is not everyone needs to have a real ID.
That's a good
As
point.
you now know, it's only the people that plan to fly, need to get into a Social Security office, or get into a federal courthouse, or onto a military base, and they don't have a passport. So if you have a passport, you don't technically need the real ID if you plan to fly starting in 2025. So, great questions.
Mm-hmm.
If you, call and make an appointment, how long before the appointment is?
That's another good question. So once you call and make that reservation, how far out do we book that appointment. It all depends on how busy we are. So
Yeah.
we can book out 3 weeks in advance.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and I'm hearing that mostly AAA and the registry are booking out 3 weeks
Yeah, I'll
in
have the money
advance.
then.
Okay, great. Got a few weeks, excellent.
Suppose
Yes.
if somebody has to testify in a federal court.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And you don't have that
Real
Yeah.
ID.
Yeah.
real ID,
Yeah.
can you still get in?
Yeah,
with-
you
with
would,
the-
you know what, that's a good question, and that would be something federal courts would have to answer. My guess is no, if you can't, because the Real ID Act requires, the only way you can enter that building is if you have this star on your driver's license or ID card. So my guess is no, you cannot enter if you do not have the Real ID, so, or a valid passport. So it's a good question, it's always good to have it and not need it,
Mhm.
right? Than to need it and be
No.
scrambling trying to get it, right? So, good. Well, thank you all so much. I wish you safe travels, happy holidays, and thank you again, Susan.